Hey, welcome back to Procurement and Supply Chain Live Dubai. Time for our final fireside of the day before we go to our last keynote at the end of our day. So we are looking at embracing the digital supply chain with Aniebo Etudor, Supply Chain Director at Barker Hughes. Aniebo, how are you?
I am doing pretty okay. How are you doing yourself?
Very, very well, thank you. Very well. We've had a fantastic show so far, lots of interaction, and there's lots I want to get into with you about embracing digital supply chains. So where I'd like to start, though, is technology, digital technologies, IoT, AI, blockchain. For you, how can they optimize supply chain processes and really enhance overall efficiency? How have you done that, and how do you see that working across the industry?
No, I think that's a brilliant way to start. Look, the way I see it, one of the key things that digital brings to us in supply chain is visibility, and visibility in a very structured way. I think about it from an analytics perspective. You know, the level of data we have AI and IoT built for us and put in a structured format in which we can use to make our day-to-day decisions, I think that is phenomenal. And, you know, when you have structured data that can drive decision-making, it takes away the pain of crunching numbers. It takes away the pain of walking through high volume of data, and you get to this point where you just focus on decision-making, and that actually makes it better and more productive. So I think for me, the very first point is visibility from the analytics you get from all of this digital chain. The other piece that I'll look at it is the predictive side of it. In supply chain, we deal with a lot of history. What happened in the past? How did it happen? How can we use that to predict the future? How can we use that as lessons learned so we don't make the same mistakes we made in the past? Put very, very simply. Digital helps us do that in a very, very, very improved way. So the level of visibility, level of data you have, and then when you put it in a structured and predictive way, you can literally, build trends. You can analyze those trends easily. It can tell you, hey, based on this, I believe this would happen in the next 24 hours, next 48 hours, if you want to bring it down to very specific arms of the supply chain. So the predictive methods and analytics you get from that really enhances the day-to-day of supply chain. I think I would end with a very practical example of how it helps, which is life cycle management. So when you put
no, absolutely no. I see Annie now joining as well.
Just hold on. When you put digital into assets, into different things like RFID, which helps the life cycle management of your items, you can literally tell where the tool is, where it is going, how it has been used, how long it was used for, how it performed in service. So that really helps for you to manage the life cycle of your tool, understand what your tool goes through, and then helps you to drive decision making.
I'd like to pick up slightly on what you mentioned there about history, and we're talking about embracing a digital supply chain. When we're bringing digital solutions in, for you, how vital is it we're not just replicating what may have been done the old way, just with the digital tool? How important is it that you take a fresh look to make sure you're getting the most out of that digital tool within your supply chain?
So I think the way I usually say that before you automate, right, before you implement, you need to have a working system. If you automate what is not working, then you end up with chaos. It's how I usually like to put it. So the first step is I take it back to my days of doing Six Sigma is you get your 5S done correctly. You sort, you simplify, everything is in the right place, how it's meant to be. Then you slap in the digital, the IoT on top of it. And that is when you start getting the true benefit of it, because now you're automating, you're putting intelligence into something that is already working, which then makes it productive, enhances the efficiency of your system, and actually gets you to the actual result that you're looking to get.
Now, you gave a good example there about making sure you have a working system before automating. Again, I'd like to pull on that thread a little bit. What challenges do organisations face other than that when implementing digital transformations, and how do they go about overcoming them, and how have you done it in your experience?
So look, in any type of transformation, in any type of changes, right, your first hurdle is usually change management. That is the very first thing. Change management is what truly impacts how your organization embraces it, how the team uses what you're introducing, and then how that tool is being used day to day in the organization. So the very first thing you need to worry about is change management. Are your people ready for the change? Are they ready to embrace the change? And how are they working with that change? That is the very first thing you need to worry about. And the next thing I would look at is the skill set. Have you trained, have you built the muscle within the organization to embrace the system? Because if you don't, then all you're doing is giving, in a very, very jokey manner, is you're handing a Lamborghini to people who only want to drive a Toyota as an example. So that is a good example of getting your organization ready, change management, then ensuring that the skill set in the organization to embrace these tools are readily available. The other common themes I would think about is the cost of implementation, the strategy and culture of the organization around that implementation. Does your culture support this kind of change? Do you have a long-term strategy to support this and pull this through as you walk through the implementation?
Yeah, I'd like to come back to implementation in a moment or two, so you've set that up nicely. What I'd like to go to next is any examples you've had of any digital supply chain initiatives at Baker Hughes that you've introduced that have been particularly successful. I'd love to know what they are and why you think they were successful.
So I like to use the very everyday example. I really love the ideas of RFID into devices, because what that gives to you is access to knowing where your tool is, where your asset is, where it's going, and how it's being moved around the world. So we put RFID in our assets and we track and study where they are going to. We can follow the movement of these assets to and fro. We are able to build supply chain maps of how our tools are moving. That is a very, very practical example. The level of data visibility we get with the logistics of our assets, the utilization of these assets helps us in driving our day-to-day decision. The other piece I'll look at, I would highlight, is the analytics side of digital, right? This gives us visibility into our supply chain, tells us what has happened in the past, helps us with predictive analysis, telling us what would happen based on what I've seen in the past, and this drives our day-to-day decision making.
Now, one area we've not touched on yet is cybersecurity, and in the line of work you're in at Baker Hughes Energy, absolutely critical cybersecurity there. How do you go about ensuring that security is there whilst going through a digital supply chain transformation?
So look, data breach, data security, it's a common problem in the industry. I don't even think it's just a supply chain issue today. So I would say we face the same challenges that almost every other industry will face from a cybersecurity perspective. We would take the similar steps. One is you need to ensure that everyone in your organization is aware, trained, and understands the different risks that are associated with cybersecurity today. You also have to invest in the systems and tools to protect you as well. I think those two are the key pillars: ensuring that in-house you are ready for what comes, and then putting in the systems to fence you out of some of these risks that comes from all angles.
One thing I'd like to return to is what you were saying about the implementation and the cultural foundation there is to make sure a digital transformation within the supply chain is being properly embraced within the business. From your perspective, where you are at Baker Hughes, how do you go about creating that culture? You can't do it overnight. You can't create that culture and that foundation overnight. How have you gone about doing that?
So I'll say we learn every day. right? That's the first thing I'll say. It's having the humility to learn, and then embracing the culture of learning as well. That for me is the primary and the bedrock of all of it. The other thing is being practical about it. So you invest in the systems to teach and invest in the systems to support learning. And then we get the right skill sets into the organization that have the know-how and can deploy this know-how to the team.
It's very easy, as I've said in previous sessions, to celebrate when things are going well, they've gone perfectly, maybe you've exceeded expectations. What advice would you have about having that honesty and humility to review these transformations and maybe course correct if something isn't working as well as it should be? What's your advice on that? How do you go about making sure you're getting the results you're wanting and being humble enough to accept sometimes things do need to be reviewed?
So I think one is seeking feedback. That is important. You need to seek feedback from your organization on what is working and what is not working. And when you get that feedback, you need to act on this so that you continue to build the trust of the business and the organization in, yes, I put this in, I am using it, I don't think it's working well for me, this is what I think about it, and then I've been listened to, so next time when a new one comes, I will be willing to try. I think the important thing there is really seeking feedback. Like I mentioned, when you have the feedback, it is critical that you act on those feedback and with sense of urgency. What you don't want is your systems not to be utilized. Because like we talked about in change management, when the organization starts building resistance to some of the systems, then they stop adopting it and go back to the old ways. What you don't want is that to happen. So you get the feedback, you act on the feedback with a sense of urgency.
Let's look to the future for a moment. What trends do you see there being in the advancement of digital supply chains? Where do you see things going next? What are the immediate changes you're seeing? Paint a picture for us. Where are things going over the next year to 5 years?
I think we would continue on this track. With the launch of AI, just yesterday or so, Google was spending a lot of time talking about Gemini. We've had ChatGPT, go and peak with all of that. So I believe this is here to stay, and not adopting this is really putting yourself behind. So for me, I think it is critical that organizations, specifically in the supply chain, we adopt and adapt quickly the trend, learn how to make this effective and efficient for us, and also start looking at how it can impact and influence what we do day to day in our organizations and business.
One theme I'm also been exploring today is regional differences, because a digital supply chain strategy that works in the Middle East might not work in Africa, it might work in South America, but not North America. For you, how important is it that these solutions, these strategies are tailored to a particular area they're being used in?
Look, it's a mix and match, I would say. It's a mix and match. You don't necessarily have to tailor fit, or you don't necessarily have to roll out one that fits all. I think you assess, see what is needed, and then deploy. That's how I would approach it. In some cases, this has to be a very low-cost solution. And like you mentioned, different geographies have different needs. In some cases, these have to be very, very sophisticated to protect against different threats. So for me, it will always be assess what is truly required and then deploy based on that.
And the final area I want to go through is about visibility. If we did a word map of key terms that have come up through today when it comes to transformations and supply chains, it's having real-time visibility. For you, what role does that play in really optimizing inventory management, demand forecasting? How crucial is that for success within a modern supply chain?
Very, very crucial, I'll say, very crucial. Look, before now, we would have managed through maybe postcard bins, and then we moved to Excel sheets. And now we have this powerful tool that can tell me at any point in time how much stock I have in different locations in my warehouses. So for me, having that level of visibility gives me the ability to make a decision now. I can react quickly to my market based on market intelligence. I can make quick purchasing decisions based on what I know of what I have and what is coming. And so you could see very practical examples of how this level of visibility is helping us day to day. So I would say very critical, very crucial to our success.
And my final point will be about making sure you're staying at the cutting edge, because I guess any supply chain director or any kind of chief supply chain officer will always want to make sure their systems, their strategies are at the cutting edge or ahead of the curve. The moment you think you've got it nailed, that's when you're behind. What advice do you have for other organisations, other professionals, from your experience of making sure you are staying at that cutting edge?
I think learning is important. There's going to be lots of new changes, lots of new things. So it is important to keep learning and maintain a culture that loves to learn. That for me is key. The other piece is be open and ready to adapt to change.
It's all about that flexibility. Well, I appreciate you are a little bit tight on time, so we will wrap things up there. You're a busy man, so we'll move things on. Aniebo Etudor, Supply Chain Director at Barker Hughes, thank you so much for joining us here at Procurement and Supply Chain Live Dubai.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.